worse and worse. And then all of a sudden, we started reading about this little town over here being a speed trap, and so the state would actually go in and do something about it, and they'd make them quit hiding behind the bushes and hiding behind the. You've seen the old thing of them hiding behind the billboard, and that's how they did. But it just has gotten now to where it is totally out of line, and it is killing people. And I'll use this for instance, but you take a little guy that's come out of Mexico, and he's up here making, $5, $6, $10 an hour. He don't really understand the laws, and all of a sudden they pull him over and they write him 5 or 6 tickets. They equal to about $1,000. Now, how long is that man? He's going to have to go without any food for a long time before he's going to be able to pay that ticket. Some people can pay them, but it's getting to the point it's hurting everyone. But traffic tickets are another thing that is a debt. It is not a lawful thing. It's simply involved in commerce, and they're simply trapping us through this thing of getting us to license them to do what they're doing. So these things that the Republic is starting to address also, and we have competency cards, what is called anyway. And I see the mouse down in there too. But it's something like this, and it just says International Competency, Certificate of Competency. In other words, I'm competent to drive. And so had one man that used it in a bank, and the bank came back and said it was okay to cash his checks and stuff with it. I think things like this is where it, yes sir.
What did you call that card again?
It's called an International Competency Card. Competency. You have to become competent. One of the men in here made it. Larry Hughes. Anyway.
I used that to go to California and also ride the Amtrak.
Yeah, did you?
Yes.
They took it?
The other day, an ID for permit.
CompUSA.
Huh?
ID for CompUSA.
Yeah.
What does it say on it?
It just simply says that, well, let me see.
Let's show my card.
All right, let him see that. But it simply just declares what you and I have been getting killed with all these years is when you were born, they give you a birth certificate. Why does someone have to have a birth certificate? What does that prove? Anything you use it for is for what purpose? For the state, isn't it? You don't need it for anything else. If your mother told you you were born on June 10th, then you're born on June 10th. That's settled. It doesn't matter what anyone else says. What we've done and what we've been taught is everybody get into everybody else's business. If you see your neighbor over there, boy, drinking and carrying on, you're to call the cops. Why? Because he hadn't invited me over there, and he shouldn't be doing that. This is the way it always is. It's something we're not getting to do, so if we're not getting to do it, they shouldn't be allowed to do it. And this is what it's all about, and this is what they literally, they've got us telling on our neighbor, I've got enough to run my own life, and more, without digging into other people's lives. I have not enough time. The good Lord only gave me enough time to deal with what happens to me. When I start dealing with other people's, then guess who's dealing with mine? The state. So if you start paying attention to your business instead of your neighbor's business, the state will start leaving you alone. They come in because they got us thinking about everything except what they're doing. We have this thing in the United States, in Texas, that we are always calling somebody my doctor.
Yeah.
My doctor said this. Well, what do you say? Why are you using a third party to tell people what you think? Just tell them, if your doctor said that, don't tell them that my doctor said it. Just say, this is the way it is. Now, who can tell you that that's not the way it is? This is a problem all the time. My doctor, my lawyer, my CPA, my preacher, and now you got a third party telling you how to get to heaven or go to hell. One of the two. As I told one of them one time, he said, well, brother, it seems like you ought to get back in the church. And I said, oh, I guess you want me to go to yours. And he said, well, we'd kind of like to have you come to our church. And I said, okay, let me ask you a question. Say I go there 10 years. And boy, you tell everything you say for me to do, I do. I listen to everything you say. I study everything you tell me to. And all of a sudden, 10 years later, you die. And 2 days later, I die. And I wake up, man, it's hot. It's hot as hell because that's where I am. And I said, I look over at you, and you're sitting on the fence, and you ain't got any clothes on, it's too hot, and you got this little guy with the red horns and the pitchfork and the forked tail, and he's sticking you every time you're hollering, ow, ow. And I say, man, you lied to me. Everybody makes a mistake. I said, don't you understand? I can go to hell by myself. I don't need you. I know what faith I have. I live my life by faith. I don't need a third party in my relationship that I have. You think about that sometime. Really think about it. Why do you want a third party in any relationship of whatever faith you're believing in? Why do you want a third party in there? They'll only tell you what they think. And now you've lost your ability to think. Now you can't do what you really believe you should. And so this is where we have come to, is we listen to other people without checking things out. I have people all the time, well, I believe you, and I said, don't you ever say that to me. If there's something about this you don't understand, go out and read it and check it out and come to your own conclusion about what you want. I am not here to shepherd anyone. I'm not a dog. I don't shepherd sheep. I am not here trying to tell you what to do. I'm simply here trying to tell you, wake up and find out who you are. You've lost who you are. You're a sovereign, living being that has rights. The one thing you attack them on all the time is rights. I have God-given rights. I have rights that come out of the Constitution. I have rights to live my life the way I want to. Everything. What we don't do is challenge the rights. I understand in that case that's going on over in Fort Worth about Dick Sincannon. Anyway, they got an attorney that has been after that Judge McBride for years. He's filed things against him trying to get him thrown off the bench. And so he is taken up being the attorney, which never would have gotten into this if he had known, But like a lot of things, people want to grasp at what they think, get an attorney first and we'll beat this thing. Well, this man is really, it sounds like, is really going to fight for him. But at the end, what is going to come out is that he will instruct the jury and Dick will go down anyway. And but he did admit in there, he was going along, he was making fun of this attorney. He was making fun of Dick and his thing, and he said, and the attorney stood up and said, are you telling me that this man has no rights? And he got real quiet. And he came back and he said, well, this does look like a bad case. In other words, the issues in the case are not there. And so how far that'll go, I don't know. But I can tell you that 99.9% of the time you're going to prison. In federal, you're going to prison every time. They draw light to you, they don't want to let you ever go until you've paid everything that they said. Everything in this country is about compliance. I had an FBI agent put it to me real plainly one time. He said, we don't care about your money. We're going to get that anyway. That's already ours. We care about compliance. We want you to do what we want you to do, when we want you to do it, how we want you to do it, and you'll do it exactly the way we want it. And this is where it all is. It's all about compliance. So you think that in complying with the IRS, and we want to go over and over and over these things so it gets in your mind to know what is going on, what to do. How did they ever get you into the income tax? How did they ever talk you into filing that 1040? Did someone come and say you had to do it? They told you have to file, and they said everybody is trained to file the 1040. Never going and checking out what a 1040 is and where it came from. And it's simply for federal employees. It is what they call a bootleg form. They didn't even put that number with what they applied for, the number 4. They brought it back and put it on that, on 1040. And so what happens is the 1040 is to be filled out by federal employees. All federal employees are to sign everything under the penalties of perjury. Not you and I, but the federal employees. But once you fill that 1040 out, then you're designated a federal employee. Now, if they pay the taxes, doesn't matter if you live in Texas or where you are, you said I'm a federal employee, you signed it under the penalty of perjury, you've told on that straw man up there, which is your alter ego, and you said this guy earned all this money and I'm swearing under the penalty of perjury, he owes you a lot of money. And so the issue is you're filling out the wrong form. It's that simple. The 1041 is the form you should fill out. Why do they call it voluntary compliance? What are you volunteering to fill out? The 1040. You're filing the 1040 that is not your form. Fill the 1041 out. Only the first page. It's only about 5 or 6 spots that need to have any filled out. Put your thing down on it, if you would. Why do I say that? Whatever form you fill out, other than that 1040, nobody can tell you can't fill it out. They didn't tell you to fill the 1040 out. You volunteered to fill it out. The 1040 is 41 is simply a trust. It deals with all trusts. It's got about 12 of them listed down the side. Those aren't the trust you're filing this under. You don't tell them it's a trust. Why is it a trust? Because when they started Social Security, when you got that Social Security number, you were made a trust within the Social Security. That name they give you, that all capital letter name with the Social Security will remain the same. I don't care how long you live. They never change that. These other agencies, you might get it John Q. Doe, J. Q. Doe, or just J. Doe. But the Social Security will never change because that's the name of a trust. The number you receive is the trust number. You fill that out and you'll get all your money back. Why? Because you're never supposed to pay taxes to begin with. Never was intended for us to pay. They trapped us into this thing of this government called the United States, which is a corporation, cut a hole in the fence and they filtered out and they just flown into all of the different states. And they got all these federal buildings. You ever known of a federal building owned by the United States in a state? No, they they lease all those things. They can't own properties in the state. Have you ever seen a bill where Congress has passed an Article 3 court out of Washington, D.C. into the states? Has never happened. And that's the only court that the federal can deal with is Article 3. They kept it in Washington, D.C. because it has nothing to do with the people of the states. I had a man call me on that 1041. I get these calls all the time. And he said, well, I sent mine out, found the states, all it. See, we're down here, we're lucky. We don't have to fill that state income tax out yet. Every other state now pays state income tax. 45? Okay, 45 of them. Now, what happened is he found the 1041 for the state of Colorado and filled it out and sent it in. He sent, and I'll have it for you next time. The man's out of town, but anyway, sent me a copy. The check's $1,500 on his state income tax, and on his state income tax it says federal tax owed 0. The 1041, and I've given that to many people all over the country, and they're doing it. And they get to one man came in, showed me a check one day for $215,000. He didn't believe the IRS when they said you can only turn in for 3 years. He filed for everything he'd ever done, so he got it. So, but the issue is, if you're not a federal United States citizen based in Washington, D.C., or the territories, or you do not work for the federal government, you're never required to pay those things. It never was. See, people always want to take everything Congress sends out as if it is applying to us. It only applies to territories and to Washington, D.C. Does not apply to the people of the states. You remember that document I gave you, and it was made up by Mr. England about territories and how they're formed and how they're established. The people never become part of the government of those territories. Their government sits in the county. They have nothing to do with Austin, Texas. They have nothing to do with Washington, D.C. Their government is in the county they live in. You vote for your people every time you go to vote. You elect a county sheriff, you elect a county judge, you elect 4 county commissioners, you elect a recorder. All those are elected specifically just in your county. Nobody else votes for them. Why would they do that if that isn't your government? Because you have never been a part of these states. It starts out a territory, and all of a sudden it becomes the people. There's enough people, and they say, "Hey, we want this state connected to this federal or to the United States." You people are designated to go up and connect the state with the federal, not the people. The people stay right where they are. They're never supposed to be bothered by that government that they form. Look at your, nothing that if anything is passed into law, it has to come through the legislature, must start in the form of a bill. Then they take the bill and they pass it through both houses, and then they both sign it and they take it to the governor, and he signs it. Now the last check, it becomes law as long as it does not violate the people's rights. The one thing they can never do is write a bill violating people's rights. You think that they're violating your rights because they said there'll be no more guns. Who are they talking to? Talking to the territories and to Washington, D.C. And where is there the most guns? Washington, D.C. If you don't believe it, go up there and try walking down the street, and your people in the hotel say, "Do not go that way, go this way." You know, I guess they know where they're hiding. But there's more murders in Washington, D.C. than anywhere else. Highest murder capital there is. Why? Because They let them have guns there, and they use this thing to try to take the guns away from the people in the state, and they never have the authority to do that. So when we think of all these things, what is a sovereign? He is someone who is created free and who needs no third parties to ever make a decision for him. Why do they get you? Because you're always bringing third parties into your arguments. No third parties allowed. I don't care what you're arguing. Don't use third parties. A third party gets you into trouble. So, third parties from the beginning of time have been the downfall of man. Adam and Eve are having a good time in the garden, and all of a sudden, one day this third party comes in, and it changed everything forever. And so you think about that. Why would you want to let some attorney, you and your wife start having problems? And hopefully that don't happen to you, but say it does. Why would you want to get a third party to come in and start taking the assets that you and her have worked real hard for all your life? Why would you ever bring an attorney into it? First thing you do is fire the sucker. Don't ever let one come into your affairs. He wasn't there when you got married, was he? He anyway wasn't there and said, do you take this wife? You're going to live with these people all these years? I don't think so. So the issue is, don't ever let one of them come in later. He's not part of the contract. And you can fire him out of that thing as quick as they can send you a letter. And had one lady told me she was down there and she had hired this attorney, and her husband came in and he handed this letter to this attorney, fired him, and he come out and threw all of her papers at her. They just went everywhere, she said. Told her, you got to get somebody else, I can't help you. And but that's the way it is. A sovereign can fire anyone who tries to get involved in his affairs. If you let one of them come in, do you ever notice the king sitting up there on the bench, and he's got a big bunch of them that are fixing to get their heads chopped off? And he said, well, Mr. So-and-so here, look up the statute where I can chop his head off and how I have to do it. Or does he just say, chop his head off? Now, can you imagine an attorney rushing in at the last minute saying, hey, I've got a stay of execution? From who? A sovereign is the highest form there is. He cannot be sued for anything. The only time he gets into trouble is when he bothers another sovereign. When he harms their property, harms them, then he can go after them. But until then, a sovereign cannot be sued in his own court. It tells you before the country was formed in American jurisprudence. It says three things that cannot be sued. One of them is the state, one is the government, and one is the sovereign. Because they're the highest form within their own realm. So a sovereign cannot sue anyone but another sovereign. And they have to get that straight between them. But the government never has the right to sue you. They do it because you tell them they can. Everything we do, we tell them and give them permission to do it. First thing that happens when someone gets a suit, and I've been there when I first started getting them, and you get them, first thing you do is just totally freeze. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? You talk to a couple of your friends, well, you shouldn't have done that to begin with. They don't want to get involved, see. They want anyone thinking, see. And they, well, you should have, the IRS, well, you should have paid them. Well, I couldn't. Well, you should have paid them. And so that's how it goes, though. You become totally petrified. And but after you fool with a couple of them and start digging in and start understanding what they're doing, you start looking for them. You get through with that when you say, hey, I want another one. You know, because you start seeing some results. People are having results in the courts like crazy. This man that I'm on the radio with every 2 weeks, he said he'd always, for 3 years, he's kind of been a skeptic. You know, he never could quite catch on to what I was talking about. Friendly guy, nice guy, always got along with him well, but it got into a thing because he got talking to this attorney. He told me when he said, I just want to tell you that there's an attorney listening in to our program. And I said, I hope so. Maybe he'll learn something. But anyway, it just so happened this attorney was a guy that I knew probably 10 years ago. And basically he was a good guy. He was a nice guy. But then all of a sudden they came and got him. The bar, the feds, came and got him and said, you'll either play ball with us or you're getting it. And so from that point on, he's the one that taught me about how to lean somebody, and it does work. But after that point, though, they grabbed him, and he totally turned against these people. One guy, he was a young boy, grew up in his neighborhood, and this man used to take him down to the law library all the time, and they studied all the time. And he turned on him. And I saw him down to federal court, and I said, you know, what you did is the lowest form that a man can do, is that to turn on his friend. And he just dropped his head. Well, now I understand he's give his bar card up. But I don't intend to let him off that easy, because he still came in was starting to say, well, you can't, he was quoting law. You've got to do it this way and this way. And so anyway, John then kind of started taking his side of the deal, and so he was upset because I was teaching people how to get rid of this debt, and it was just throwing everybody, nobody else could do that, so it's just throwing the whole country into more debt. We were putting them further and further into debt. And I said, no, John, that's not what it is. What happens on this is that you don't throw the country into debt. If you'll tell the Treasury, put this against the debt of the United States, the debt goes down. What happens, you give it to the Federal Reserve, they turn it into cash. That's what puts the country into debt. It's not the people, it's the Federal Reserve doing it. And so anyway, he went into court, and what he was doing was a man in California that I've been out there about 5 times for seminars out there, and he had gotten hold of this man and had taught him this, you know, about what to say to the judges and all that. And he sat there in the courtroom watching what was going on, and he said, it literally knocked me down. He said what was happening was it was working. And he said, in fact, he got on to me out there, and that was the best thing that ever happened, because I started laughing. And he said, who are you? And he said, I found out later he thought I was an attorney because he has a beard, you know. And he said, well, I'm just here watching the proceedings. Well, you just keep quiet, you know. Well, that then made him listen more intently. And when he saw what went on in that courtroom, and everything that I told him on the show was taking place, he said, now I understand what you're saying. So it took just that, and he was very friendly this last time, and wanted to talk because now he understood, and he understands some of it. But you can teach this a long time. The only thing I ever want you to understand is who you are. I don't. The other is just things that help you get out of the messes and things we're in. But if you understand who you are, you're going to go around with a lot lighter step. What kills us is going around, and we got this burden that the state has placed on us, and we're walking around all the time afraid we're going to go 1 mile over the speed limit. We're going to look wrong at the policeman when he drives by. We're going to do this wrong. We're going to get somebody down at City Hall mad at us because we wanted to put something onto our house and we didn't go get permission. We have all of this stuff that's laying on us. And the more they get people to do these things, the further they go with it. You know, $15 certificate you get from the city so you can do something to your house. Well, I thought that's your house. And yet they've trained us that the city can tell you. And I used to just tell them, well, is city code, what are you quoting me? Well, that's city code. I said, well, is city code law? And they'd just look at you and turn around and walk off. Because they know you're obligated to obey the law, not codes, rules and regulations. So, as we get into this, I don't know who's got you got the